Hello, everyone, and welcome to the President's Forum. The President's Forum is an association of 16 higher education institutions committed to reinventing higher education for a diverse student population. Each month, the President's Forum publishes thought leadership around an important topic impacting higher education. The theme for October is Best Practices for Supporting Underserved Communities. We're going to talk a little bit about that today, and joining us are a few people who are perfectly aligned to talk about that. Dr. Lisa Vollendorf is president of Empire State University. Madeline Pumariega is president of Miami-Dade College, and Wesley Smith is the executive director of the President's Forum. Thank you all for being with us today. I want to kick off our event with a few questions of my own, and then we can open it up to potential media questions a little bit later on. Please note, for anyone who is joining us on the live feed, we'll be able to take your question live, or you can type your question into the chat as well. Let's start here with Dr. Vollendorf. Can you explain how SUNY Empire's online learning environment specifically benefits students with autism in ways that traditional in-person education might not?
SUNY Empire a few years ago leaned into the opportunity to explore what it would mean to become an autism supportive institution. And first and foremost, because we are an online university, we express that support it through our course delivery as well as through our student support services. And with regard to course delivery, we primarily are asynchronous, as I think most of us who are in the online space are, because students keep telling us they want synchronous, but they never actually sign up for it. They always come to the asynchronous options. So we know that we have to have very strong universal design for learning. And also we need to embed the data that we're collecting and the evidence that we are gleaning from our term over term information in our learning management system, feed that back into our continuous improvement. So we really have a good way of approaching universal design for learning in our courses. And we also embed our supports within our course delivery as well as outside in our student success services, I would say.
President Pumariega, I want to come to you. You recently wrote an article in which you wrote that nearly 98% of Miami-Dade College students graduate from school debt-free. Can you elaborate for us on what has made that possible? I mean, that's a remarkable number when it really jumps out at 98% out debt-free. How did you do that?
Well, I think one of the things is Florida, its colleges and universities have not raised tuition in over a decade. It's probably been between 12 and 14 years since any Florida public college or university has raised tuition. So I think that's, step number one in terms of just policy at the state level. And I would say that that's followed with excellent state investments in both our colleges and universities in creating different opportunities. For example, in the nursing, with the nursing shortage, investing in pipeline dollars, which created opportunities for students to be able to access scholarships. And those partnerships with industry were then matched by the state. So, for example, if a hospital donated $250,000 for nursing scholarships, it got matched, it became $500,000. And now students that were on a nursing pathway had more access to scholarship dollars. And I would say as a college, we have invested in our students. We have not only through our honors college scholarships, which is much more merit-based. We created the American Dream Scholarship, which are students who graduate from high school and have at least a 3.0 and are ready to start college-ready courses, and that's a full scholarship. And then we launched Presidential and Rising Scholarship programs as well in 2021. And most recently, we worked with the mayor of Miami-Dade County and the commissioners, and we launched a program called Future Ready. And that's a last dollar scholarship program. So I think it's a couple of things. One, state policy on increases, right, and investing in higher education. Institutional policies on making sure that we're raising the funds to provide scholarship and aid to students. And then number three, I think good financial advisors working with students so that they don't take on debt when they don't need that debt to be able to finish their degree.
So we're talking about underserved populations and how you best connect with them and facilitate their higher education experience. Dr. Vollendorf talked about the working with the neurodivergent community, and now we're talking about another big obstacle being finances, and you found ways to work through that. Wes, I want to turn to you. In your role as the executive director of the President's Forum, how do you see, and how do the presidents who are part of the President's Forum generally see micro credentials playing a role in expanding educational opportunities for underserved communities?
Yeah, great topic to explore, Marty. I think that most of our institutions are doing just that. They're exploring it. They're starting with credentials. There are a lot of reasons why it helps students that come from underserved communities. So let me give you a few reasons that are the most persuasive. One is that the cost issue is always an issue. So when you are doing a smaller credential, not a traditional associate's degree or bachelor's degree, you're looking at lower tuition costs for a program that is much shorter in duration. Not only that, there's an opportunity cost involved in education and seeking education. And so when you cut the time frame down, you also cut that opportunity cost down. And so students can more afford to put the time into a credential that they need to. There are other reasons, though, that this is so helpful for students that have traditionally been very hard to serve by our system or have been left behind. And that's because they don't have the flexibility of a full-time 18-year-old student with resources to pursue education only. These programs now provide flexibility for the learners so that they can juggle their other responsibilities. They can work full-time, they can take care of children, they can take care of aging parents, et cetera. So that flexibility that a lot of these micro-credentials provide is fantastic for working learners as well. And then most importantly, I think for every credential that we're talking about is a lot of these are tied to, and good micro-credentials are tied to work opportunities. And that's the thing that students need the most, and that is a job. After they have any type of credential earned, they need to know that they're going to get hired. And a lot of our institutions are partnering with tech company. I mean, Microsoft or IBM or Apple or Tesla. We have a lot of these employers that are tied into these micro credentials, and it's very helpful for our students, the students that we serve. The last thing I want to say is stacking micro credentials into more traditional degrees is very helpful as well. And it can give students confidence. Learners can get confidence by saying, I'll take a short, micro credential. I did that. It resulted in a good thing. And now I can take another step and stack that into, a more traditional program like an associate's or a bachelor's degree. So those are some of the reasons why micro-credentials are really important right now.
Those results that you mentioned, those really matter. And I want to go back to you, Dr. Vollendorf, that what measurable outcomes have you observed since you began implementing the autism supportive initiatives at Empire?
We have seen at Empire, with the establishment of a Center for Autistic and Neurodivergent Student Support, that students have come forward and self-identified as being neurodivergent and or autistic. We don't require the paperwork that, of course, is required in K through 12 for reasons that we understand with regard to the funding stream. So we have opened the doors at Empire State University for students, again, of all ages, as Wes says, from across 4 generations of learners that we serve, for them to come forward and seek support, whether it be additional advising or different kinds of mental health services, or simply a different kind of mentorship where they're working with faculty and staff who understand their needs. So we have built communities that I think were unforeseen when we initially launched this initiative a few years ago. And we also have started to the point of partnerships, be able to forge partnerships with outside organizations that's entire being is in service to autistic and neurodivergent people. And one thing that I'm excited about for the future and that I see as a next phase for us is building out career services so we can help students not just with career preparation and the excitement that they have, helping funnel that into getting them ready to be on the job market in some cases, or take their next move in other cases in their careers, but also helping with placement so that people can have mentoring beyond when they graduate so they can remain connected to a community that understands them, that has empathy, and can help them build the skills that they need to be successful on the job.
President Pumariega, you mentioned nursing as one of the programs earlier on that helps students take a big step in their careers. It makes me wonder, what are you doing at MDC to collaborate with industry partners to ensure that your curriculum remains market aligned? Because so much is changing so fast with the companies that your students are going to go try to get a job with, that they want to make sure those skills are aligned.
So every one of our workforce programs, Marty, has an advisory board made up of industry experts. So we've just launched the first college credit certificate, Associates in Science and Bachelors of Applied Science and Artificial Intelligence. And we had industry experts help with the curriculum. Our cybersecurity program, both our associates and bachelors, has NSA designation Center of Excellence. And that is really attributed to having an advisory board of industry experts helping shape that curriculum so it's work-based and it really is applicable to what students need when they get out onto that job or that internship opportunity. And so I believe that a good and best practice model of creating that opportunity for industry to help guide the curriculum is creating those advisory boards. And then in the tech space, we're leading the effort with our Miami Tech Coalition, which is a group of tech leaders and industry partners that come together, not just with Miami-Dade College, but with the entire talent ecosystem to talk about what we need in our community to drive a talented workforce, especially in the tech space. And then when you think about healthcare, having those hospital CNOs and CEOs at the table when we're developing out the curriculum. So I think that's a really good way to do it. And it does build opportunities for students with work-based learning opportunities like internship, and helps guide our curriculum. And the same we could say about, the partnership that we had with Tesla on building the automotive technician with Tesla. What happened there is then two automotive companies locally said, we want the same apprenticeship program. And so we were able to leverage a national partnership into addressing the talent shortage right here locally in Miami-Dade County.
Dr. Vollendorf, how has becoming an autism supportive institution changed the overall culture at Empire? And what advice would you have for other institutions looking to follow a similar path?
Culture is often thought to be very intangible, and the idea that is, I think, generally accepted that we take a long time to shape a culture and change a culture. And I generally will agree with that within higher education. And I will say that leaning into the goal of becoming an autism supportive institution, the prize, as it were, that we're very proud of having received the designation as an autism supportive university, has really brought faculty and staff and students together around a common value of being aware that we value all of our students, of course, and valuing that we have different abilities and different knowledge bases with regard to how to provide a fully inclusive teaching and learning environment. So I think it has helped us change the frame. And everybody now at the institution, regardless of their own personal experience and or training, I think shows up with an understanding that we have more to learn from each other. And that is a fundamental cultural shift that the likes of which I've never seen. And that really is something to be proud of. And also it's a very humbling experience to say, that, to recognize every single day that we have more to learn, that every day we can do better in building more inclusive rather than exclusionary systems, and that taking barriers away for autistic and neurodivergent students is taking barriers away for all students. So I'm excited for what the future holds, because now that we've taken that made this step forward together, I think there is a lot of good to come from it, some of which I think we haven't even imagined yet.
Two really great examples here with Empire and with Miami-Dade. Wes, what are some of the key strategies that you see for higher education institutions to effectively build pathways to success for these underserved student populations? And then maybe tell us a little bit about how these strategies can be scaled across different types of institutions.
Yeah, I love to talk about the work that the President's Forum institutions are doing, and that's essentially, we'll answer this question. So, when you look at the work that Lisa and Madeline are doing at their respective institutions, and you can see that with all of our presidents. For it's not necessarily in the autism work, or it's not necessarily just serving the one of the most diverse institutions in America, where Madeline is, but it's also there are a lot of ways that underserved communities need this help. The first thing, I think, is a commitment to put students before every other interest. And so what you're seeing at Empire, what you're seeing at Miami-Dade, is the interests of the students trump the interests of the institution, the interest of faculty, the interest of any other potential interests out there. And that's the way you start. You have to say, what do the students need the most? So, a lot of our institutions, they offer education to active duty military members of the military. And when you think about that, just think of all the different factors that go into making education difficult for this particular population. Either they get transferred, right? So location is tough. They're in the middle of a deployment. They can't get into a classroom. You have to be thinking about what their family duties and responsibilities are. And so, if you're going to serve that particular population, you've got to be committed to making the moves in your institution to create the flexibility necessary to serve that particular population. So that's the first thing, is you have to put the student first. The second thing is you've got to embrace technology. And I would say that our institutions are doing a great job creating time and place flexibility. They're eliminating the requirement that you have to be at a certain place at a certain time to receive an education. And that is very, very important to serving populations that have had a hard time consuming higher ed in the past. And the last thing that I'll highlight is the culture build. And both Lisa and Madeline have explained, the culture that they've been creating, but it's contagious. And once you start saying, hey, we need to keep costs low. Hey, we've got a population that we need to deliver better resources for, and better methods. It catches on and it moves forward. And that's how you build these types of service providing higher ed institutions.
Dr. Vollendorf, President Pumariega, and Wes, thanks for joining us. Really appreciate it. Our reminder, our next monthly media availability is coming up on Friday, November 22nd, when our presidents will discuss AI and its impact in higher education. Please visit presidentsforum.org to view our content each month and subscribe to our newsletter as well. To our entire panel, thanks so much for your time today.
Thanks, Marty.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.